give you the shirt off their back. That's the kind of people they are, and God looks out for people like that, but you also have to understand that it's biblical too, where it says, to whom much is given, much is expected. So there's a lot expected out of Job, right? That wealth that was given to him needs to go to the glorification of God. The Duck Dynasty people, their wealth needs to go to the glorification of God, right? Because God can strip all that away from them if they're not using it in the way that the Lord desires for them to use it.
And, just like I said earlier, there's a reason that Job had those servants and camels and donkeys. And it's the same thing with the Robertsons, the family from Duck Dynasty, the Robertson clan. They deserve every dime that they have. And I say that because I know the godly people that they are. And I'm not just saying that as a fan of Duck Dynasty. I'm saying that as a fan of the Unashamed podcast, really.
Yeah.
If you listen to their podcast, which I do every day, you'll see that these guys aren't just your typical I go to church Christians. These guys, the whole family, I shouldn't say guys and gals, all of the Robertsons, even Sadie Robertson is a tremendous evangelist for the Lord. They want to bring people to Christ. And even after having all that money, where they literally don't have to work another day of their life, they could get up every morning and say, nah, I'm just going to play PlayStation 5 today, like a lot of us would. They could wake up every day and say, let's go to the beach. They love hunting. They could literally hunt every day and not do anything else. I mean, that's the type of money these people have. They could have a home in Beverly Hills if they wanted. They are not that, though. Even though they have this money, you know what they're doing? They're giving back to the community and the church. They even have Phil Robertson has even set up a church where he doesn't even ask for a collection or anything. He just says, if you feel like giving, there's a box out there in the back. You can put some money in it or something, but we're not asking people for money here. And he literally just wants to bring people to Christ, and he does. I would put him up there with anyone today on the amount of people that Phil Robertson is bringing to Christ through the Unashamed podcast, fans of the show, Duck Dynasty, people that know him in the community. He's done tremendous things. Their family's done tremendous things. And they are, Brother Brandon, I'm glad you brought it up, they are the perfect example of a modern-day Job, the whole entire family, really. They really are. But, I pray that they don't have everything taken away from them. Yeah. They definitely don't deserve that. But I know that if Satan decided that's what he wanted to do, and God said, okay, you can try to turn the Robertson clan away from me if you want, go right ahead. And I think God would know that's not going to happen, just like he knew it wasn't going to happen with Job.
Oh, I mean, they grew up poor, man.
Right.
He'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they could live off the land. They literally could live off the land.
They'd
if they
be
had
A-okay.
To. Yeah, they could. Well, let's move forward a little bit here. I do want to try, if we can, folks, to get another chapter in. When you look at the book of Job, which we're trying to deep dive, and if we don't get a little further here today, then I'm afraid we're going to tremendously fall behind on the book of Job, because I'm looking at the book of Job here, brother, and we have 42 chapters to get through. And
hey, that's 42 podcasts right there.
Well, that's why today I'm at least trying to get through 2 chapters here.
Okay.
We may, next week, we may look at ways of speeding this up a little bit, if possible, maybe, because I do know we have coming into the fold here, we have the friends of Job that are showing up. And a lot of what they are saying is incorrect advice anyway, so maybe we can skip through some of the incorrect advice possibly. We'll have to discuss that later on this week. But right now, let's just get through chapter 2. It's a very important chapter, so let's knock it out right now. And as we go into this chapter here, we're looking at something taking place that sounds familiar. You've seen it in the first chapter, and it says, on another day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before him. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil, and he still maintains his integrity. Though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason." "Skin for skin," Satan replied. "A man will give all he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well, then he is in your hands, but you must spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." He replied, "You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. He did not sin in what he said. When Job's three friends, Eliphaz, the Temanite, and as we look at this, I do want to dive into this just a little bit here, Brother Brandon, because I believe this part can be overlooked. As I did some studying on this, I realized just how important this little part right here, we're looking at Job chapter 2, verse 11, and I believe this is very important, and it's something that I learned and I'd like to share right here on the podcast. And Brother Brandon, feel free to jump in at any time. But Eliphaz, we're talking about Eliphaz, a man here, and the word Eliphaz in Hebrew is actually translated, it means actually a few different things, which is something that I'm learning also, Brother Brandon. Just like with the King James or whatever version of the Bible you're reading, there's always so many people who take different interpretations. And there's so many arguments about, oh, I believe it means this, I believe it means that. Interpretations. The Bible, a lot about faith and Bible reading, it comes down to interpretation. And I'm learning that even the interpretation of the words into Greek or Hebrew, even those, there's conflict. Because people are disagreeing on the meaning of these words. And I'm just going to show you 3 examples here of what I found when I looked up the meaning of Eliphaz, the name, the man, Eliphaz. It means in Hebrew, God is his strength. God is his strength. Also, El is pure gold. Eliphaz, El is pure gold. Or just pure gold. Those are 3 examples of 3 different interpretations that I found personally when studying the name Eliphaz. Every name in the Bible pretty much has some type of meaning behind it. Even the name Jesus, and here, the name Job, which means persecuted. But Eliphaz there could have 3, possibly more meanings. But Eliphaz was a man from Temanite. And the meaning behind Temanite, the land of Temanite, was the south. And Temanite was to the south of Esau. And at that time, people, this is the important part that I'm trying to relay to everyone here about these men that we're learning about here that are coming to Job. Job's friends. At that time, people in that region of Esau, Edom, that sort of area there, the people in that region were not typically known as people of faith. And I believe that that's why God is kind of like laying this out for us right here when these people are showing up. Just in their names and where they are coming from, you can see their trouble. Someone can come to me and say, a guy's coming from, a bad part of town to give you some advice, and I'll know, well, if he's coming from that side of town, then who knows what type of advice he's coming to give me. But that's kind of what we're getting here when God's saying Eliaphus is coming from Temanite, and Temanite's to the south of Esau, where people typically don't believe in God, and they live lives that are kind of like the lives that people were leading back in the days of Noah. So this is an example here, folks. Look at who's giving you advice. The person who's trying to tell you to get your life in order in your day-to-day life, is that person a person of God? Do they go to church? Do they have any type of faith? Who's giving you advice? Because a lot of times I'll hear people say, we deal with it with young men. We deal with a lot of young men from work and different places. Young men that tell us all the time, well, this guy told me this. Well, where did you hear that rumor? Some crazy rumor will pop up, and we'll be like, where did that come from? Well, this guy told me. And it's like, well, if you heard it from him, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt, but you know what I'm saying here, Brother Brandon. We deal with this a lot, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. I'm glad you started looking up the names, because in Hebrew there really is a serious emphasis on the meanings of names. You see it a lot in the early Old Testament where, even in the Bible, they'll make a reference and be like, or they'll say somebody's name and they'll say, and that name actually means this. Like, because there's a real serious emphasis on the names of the Israelites and even just people in general back in the day. And I found really interesting, there was a part in the Bible where it's going through like the 12 tribes of Jacob, or the 12 tribes of Israel that are a part of the 144,000. And I just went through the list of the tribes and found the names and the meanings of each tribe. And it almost kind of makes a sentence, which is just really interesting. So I started kind of getting into that, where I'd find parts of the Bible where they'll give a list of names, and I'll kind of go and try and find the Hebrew meanings for those names.
Right.
And, do some research into it, and then put them in the same order that they're in the Bible and see what it says to me out of that. I'll have to if I can find that piece of paper, I'll have to bring it in for you.
Yeah, man. Bring it in. That'd be great to look at.
But it's just, it's a fun little, almost like it's a puzzle.
It is.
God is like famous for doing that, man. There's so many deep secrets in the Bible. It is insane. So if you look into the Bible and you look at all those different names, you can just read it for the names of the tribes, but then you can look into the meanings and see, oh wow, this right here was a hidden message.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what we're seeing here.
And that's exactly what we're seeing here is like, because life is so deep, and God created all of it to be that deep and that just awe-inspiring, so that we give Him glory and realize, wow, how did you do this, God? Yeah. Like, how can you keep up with this? And how did you plan all this? It's all to give glory to Him. Yes. At the end of the day.
Amen. So we saw Eliaphus from Temanite, and we spoke about that. Now, the second friend coming in is Bildad. And Bildad in Hebrew would mean son of contention, and contention would mean assertion or heated disagreement. So the son of contention, Bildad, is coming in, and he's from Shuhite. Now, the Shuhite land was a land much like Esau, very similar. People with the same type of beliefs, which were not many beliefs at all, and if they did have a belief, it was in a false god. But there we're seeing the second friend, Bildad, from Shuhite, and then the third friend, Zophar, from Naamathite. That's a hard one to say. I did look up the correct pronunciation on that, And even after doing that, I'm struggling with it. But Zophar, this is a funny one, Brother Brandon. I found it to be funny. Zophar and he